Imagine spending 6 years just to get hair to move properly, or creating a whole stop motion film by yourself, or just trying to keep up with Robin Williams' improv. Animation is tough. It pushes the limits of both tech and creativity. It's the kind of filmmaking that needs tons of care put into every single frame, whether it's 2D, 3D, or stop motion. So today we're looking at what were the most difficult films to animate. We've picked out 10 films across all forms of animation that really stand out for their incredible detail and effort. These films have done everything from breaking tech barriers to being the first of their kind, or just taking existing techniques to a whole new level. We'll also throw in lots of honorable mentions to show just how wild animation can get. But as always, let us know in the comments your pick for the hardest film to animate. Let's kick things off with the classics, 2D animation. Although it's becoming a bit rare in the US, overshadowed by the flashier 3D styles, there's a timeless charm to hand-drawn films that just can't be beaten. But don't be fooled, creating these films is no small feat. Just imagine drawing over 100,000 frames by hand. That's why we're first diving deep into some of the most complex hand-drawn films, starting with the first traditionally animated feature film, 1937's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When Walt Disney proposed making this film, everyone thought he'd lost his mind. Even his wife and brother were skeptical, not to mention the Hollywood execs who couldn't see the potential. They worried the extended runtime filled with bright colors would be too much for viewers and there wouldn't be enough funny things to show the whole time. But Disney knew animation wasn't just about making people laugh. He knew the power of a good story. Settling on the Brothers Grimm's fairy tale Snow White, he lined up a budget of $250,000, enlisted 32 animators, and gathered a crew of 750 artists to paint, ink, and bring the story to life. Animation started in 1936 and was a massive undertaking, with many of the animators originally being newspaper cartoonists. So they underwent rigorous training to elevate their craft, learning everything from human anatomy to action analysis. They even had actors perform scenes to guide their animations, a novel approach at the time which became very common for future films. They used cell animation, a method where each character is drawn onto separate transparent sheets and layered on top of each other over detailed backgrounds. It was groundbreaking but difficult, with over 2 million drawings needed, each filled with intricate details and vivid colors. This was the first feature film to be created this way and really set a path forward for animation the following decades. Despite the budget ballooning to $1.4 million, the film was a commercial success, raking in over $8 million and earning Disney an honorary Oscar for screen innovation and charming millions. This success wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Animated feature films were the future, and Disney continued to innovate with each new release, from the visually complex Fantasia to the realistic animal animations in Bambi. Through the 1950s, Disney released so many classics like Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Lady and the Tramp. But not every film was a walk in the park. Some, like our next film, presented their own unique challenges. Fast forward over 2 decades after their first animated feature, and Disney was ready to create what they envisioned as a true masterpiece, Sleeping Beauty in 1959. But aiming for perfection, they ended up biting off a bit more than they could chew. The film's journey began way back in 1950, and it almost took a whole decade to hit theaters, with a massive $6 million budget that ballooned along the way. From 1952 to 1955, the film was storyboarded over and over, with Disney himself constantly calling for changes that delayed the process even further. The animation style of Sleeping Beauty was particularly ambitious. They chose a tapestry-like visual style inspired by medieval art, a departure from anything Disney had done before. This artistic direction was driven by Ivan Earl, the background artist whose meticulous and detailed paintings became both a good and bad thing. Earl created over 300 paintings during his 5 years on the project, with some backgrounds stretching up to 15 feet long. His dedication to detail was so intense that it caused a real headache for animators trying to make the characters pop against such detailed backdrops. The desire to showcase Earl's work led Disney to use Super Technorama 70 film format for the first time, requiring even larger drawings which needed even more hand inking and coloring. By 1957, they had completed only 2/5 of the animation. Amidst these production challenges, Walt Disney started caring less about the film, focusing more on his new venture, Disneyland, which opened in 1955, leading him to distance himself from the film's day-to-day production. Despite being a major technological achievement, Sleeping Beauty didn't perform well at the box office initially, failing to recoup its production costs and receiving mixed reviews, though its art style was not criticized. Over time, however, it has been re-evaluated more favorably and, like all Disney classics, has earned a significant amount of money through re-releases. Sleeping Beauty marked the end of an era as the last Disney film to use hand inking. The studio continued with traditional cell animation until The Little Mermaid in 1989, which kickstarted the Disney Renaissance. Shortly after, with The Rescuers Down Under in 1990, Disney transitioned to digital methods for coloring and combining drawings, utilizing Pixar's CAP software, which revolutionized the animation process. Yet, innovation didn't stop there. In 1991's Beauty and the Beast, Disney seamlessly merged 2D animation with a 3D environment in the ballroom scene, setting a new standard for animated films. Although using a computer, they still had to paint 1,295 backgrounds and draw 120,000 drawings. But computers did help make the layering and animation process much easier. Without them, trying to keep up with Robin Williams as the genie in 1992's Aladdin would have been impossible with the amount of improv he did and how animated he himself was. They continued pushing boundaries with The Lion King in 1994, spending 3 years working on the wildebeest stampede scene, designing a program to prevent the hundreds of animals from colliding. While computers have made certain aspects of animation easier, the challenge now lies in continuously innovating and harnessing these tools to tell stories in ways never before possible. From hand-drawn cells to complex CGI, Disney's journey in animation is a testament to the evolving art of bringing imagination to life on screen. Animation isn't just a Disney thing, and it's certainly not limited to the US. Enter Studio Ghibli, Japan's beloved powerhouse of animation, known worldwide for its heartfelt stories and meticulously hand-drawn films. Since 1999, Ghibli has embraced using computers, but their rule of thumb was to use them to enhance their animation, not to overshadow it. A good example of this being their 2001 masterpiece, Spirited Away. In this film, unnecessary eye candy was stripped back to focus more on the simple and focused story, an approach also used in their later hits like Howl's Moving Castle, Ponyo, and The Wind Rises. When director Hayao Miyazaki is at the helm, you know you're in for something special. But you can't deny that computers have helped make animation easier. So for the hardest animated Ghibli film, we have to look at the traditional cel animated films. Like My Neighbor Totoro, for example. A cel animated film brought to life in just 8 months by only 8 animators. Yet no film exemplifies Ghibli's dedication to the art of animation quite like Princess Mononoke, their last film to mostly use traditional cel animation. Princess Mononoke was to Ghibli what The Little Mermaid was to Disney, except it used some CGI to enhance certain elements like the demon worms and some forest scenes, but without dominating the traditional animation. For this epic, Ghibli pulled out all the stops. Complex character animations, unique mythical creatures, and grand battle scenes, making it one of the most visually stunning offerings in their catalog. The animators even went on location with Miyazaki to capture realistic landscapes, helping to create the film's detailed backgrounds. And creating all of this was no small feat. With a runtime of 2 hours and 13 minutes, it required the creation of 144,000 cel drawings, with Miyazaki personally overseeing and redrawing a majority of them. For some scenes, it took more than a month to animate just 1 minute of footage. This intense labor pushed the film's budget to 2.35 billion Japanese yen, or about $23.5 million, making it the most expensive anime film at the time. But the efforts paid off. It wasn't just a box office success, it remains one of Studio Ghibli's best films to this day. Studio Ghibli might be a titan in the anime world, but there is so much other anime worth highlighting. Take the 1988 classic Akira, for instance. This film set a new benchmark for how detailed and fluid animation could be. It involved a staggering 160,000 cells and used 327 different colors, including 50 that were custom made just for this film. The biker gang chase scene alone with its iconic shots shows the crazy effort that went into the animation. Then there's the 2006 film Paprika, which blends hand-drawn animation with CGI to create some of the trippiest visuals in anime, even inspiring Hollywood movies like Inception. And let's not forget about anime TV shows like Attack on Titan and Jujutsu Kaisen, which feature some of the most epic action scenes in any medium. But none of these were as difficult as Redline, released in 2009. This film dives into a high-speed racing event set far into the future, filled with adrenaline-pumping scenes that are both incredibly detailed and fluid, bringing the chaos of the races to life. But the craziest part? Every single frame of Redline was hand-drawn. No CGI was used to enhance the visuals. To animate the entire 1 hour and 42-minute film, over 100,000 frames were drawn by hand, taking a whopping 7 years to complete. Produced by Madhouse, a studio known for its high-quality anime but with less financial flexibility, the animators faced immense pressure to deliver this visually stunning piece within a reasonable budget. Despite all the hard work, Redline didn't perform well at the box office, initially flopping. However, it has since garnered a cult following, praised for what many consider to be some of the best animation in the anime industry. And then there's The Thief and the Cobbler. Not just our final difficult 2D animated film, but also one of the most challenging films ever made. It's a film production that shows the problems with being overly ambitious, taking 28 years to complete, and still, it was never finished in the way its creator envisioned. Back in 1968, animator Richard Williams set out to create what he hoped would be the greatest animated movie of all time. The journey began with a small team of 40 which soon released an Oscar-winning short, A Christmas Carol, in 1971. This success was supposed to kickstart his dream project, originally titled Nasruddin. However, the project hit a wall due to financial mismanagement and was scrapped, even though they had 3 hours of animated footage complete. Luckily, Williams was able to retain the rights to the character, so he worked on a new script. Despite his studio having financial issues because of the 1974 recession, forcing his team to work on TV commercials and shorter projects in the meantime, they still penciled in animations for the dream project on the side. He hyped up the project with claims of animating at an unprecedented 24 frames per second, double the industry standard. And the hype worked, with the studio getting funds from a Saudi prince in 1978 for a test scene. But Williams being Williams, he chose the most complicated scene, going over budget and didn't make the due date, causing the investor to withdraw. Williams' next big break came after directing the animation for 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a technically demanding film that blended live action and animation seamlessly. To animate a single frame, they printed a picture of the frame, drew the illustration needed on tracing paper, then hand-colored the drawing and composited the drawing back onto the frame. But the film was a success. Williams won 2 Oscars for it, and more importantly, he secured the backing of Warner Brothers for what was now officially titled The Thief and the Cobbler. Racing against the 1991 deadline, Williams' team worked tirelessly at 24 frames per second, creating scenes of incredible complexity. They were animating more than needed with the intention of cutting after, which is a ridiculous way to make an animated film. The work environment was intense, with animators enduring brutal 60-hour weeks and high staff turnover due to Williams' ridiculous standards, where he even fired people the same day of hiring. Unfortunately, they missed a few of the deadlines, and the initial screenings were poorly received due to issues with the film's pacing and narrative structure, since William didn't storyboard the film. In a last-ditch effort to save the project, new scenes were added at a reduced frame rate, and the film was transformed into more of a musical to make it more enjoyable. Despite these efforts, the film flopped upon release but has aged well with its restored cut, especially praised for its ambitious and complex animation. This journey through The Thief and the Cobbler's problematic production illustrates just how challenging the art of animation can be, especially when vision and reality collide in the most complex ways imaginable. Now let's shift gears and dive into the world of 3D animation. While it might seem easier than 2D due to computers handling the heavy lifting of redrawing each frame, it introduces its own set of challenges. Adding a third dimension means animators need a solid grasp of spatial awareness, perspective, and depth, all while mastering complex character and object modeling. Despite advancements in software making some tasks simpler, pushing the boundaries of the tech and using it effectively is the most challenging part. We're heading back to Disney to look at how they've embraced an advanced 3D animation. Since making the switch, Disney has continually pushed tech boundaries. Consider Moana, where they developed their own software to realistically simulate water interacting with characters and environments. In Zootopia, the team achieved a new level of detail with fur animation, giving millions of hairs to each character that reacted differently depending on the animal type. Then there's Frozen, which they not only focused on accurately simulating snow, but also extensively studied how light interacts with ice and snow to enhance the visual storytelling. However, the most praise has to go to 2010's Tangled, possibly the most important modern film for Disney. Before Tangled, Disney's 3D efforts weren't very successful. They were lagging behind other studios. On top of this, their last princess film in 2009, The Princess and the Frog, didn't do as well as they hoped, leaving the studio searching for a breakthrough. Tangled, with its whopping $260 million budget, was a make-or-break moment. The film faced 2 major roadblocks, the first being animating Rapunzel's iconic hair. It took 6 years for Disney's engineers to develop the software needed to realistically animate over 70 feet of hair in various conditions, including underwater. Just by looking at the test footage, you could see how difficult this was to accomplish, with the hair constantly spasming when the software wasn't fully developed yet. Even as late as January of 2010, they still weren't sure if Rapunzel's hair length would work. The other challenge was preserving Disney's beloved animation style within the 3D space. This required a lot of thought, as this would be the new animation style going forward for their princess films. The goal was to meld the charm of traditional 2D animations with the depth of 3D, coining a technique that brought the warmth and intuitive feel of hand-drawn to CGI. This approach not only succeeded in making Tangled look great, but also set a new standard for all future Disney animations. Though Tangled didn't smash box office records relative to its budget, it marked a turning point, re-establishing Disney as a titan in the animation industry. This success laid the groundwork for the studio's dominance throughout the decade, proving that innovation, coupled with a deep respect for its roots, could breathe new life into its cherished storytelling traditions. And to this day, Tangled remains the most expensive animated film. Moving on, we can't discuss 3D animation without mentioning Pixar, the studio that has arguably done more to advance this tech than any other. Despite some inconsistencies over the last decade, Pixar remains a leader in the realm of 3D animation. They've continuously improved on the tech, really enhancing how animation interacts with real-world physics. For instance, with 2012's Brave, Pixar took hair animation to new heights, really studying the dynamics of curly hair to achieve lifelike movement. This followed their achievements in enhancing human character and clothing animation with 2004's The Incredibles, Pixar's first film to focus on human characters. And earlier in 2003's Finding Nemo, they revolutionized water animation, creating software to accurately render how light and creatures move through water. And let's not forget 2001's Monsters, Inc., where Pixar developed new software to manage Sully's 2.3 million individual hairs, reacting naturally to movement and moisture. Yet it was 1995's Toy Story that stood as Pixar's most challenging film. As the first full-length CGI animated film, Toy Story had no previous blueprint to follow. It was an uncharted territory, a similar situation to Disney with Snow White. Pixar had some experience with CGI from their short films, notably 1988's Tin Toy, which won an Oscar and caught Disney's attention, leading to their collaboration on Toy Story. Under the direction of John Lasseter, Pixar set out to transform their short film experience into a feature-length film. The project was huge. 27 animators and 400 computer models were tasked with bringing the world of Woody and Buzz to life. The characters themselves were complex, with Woody alone requiring 723 motion controls, including over 200 just for his facial expressions. The shading work was also difficult, with a lot of thought put into ensuring the textures and light reflections looked natural. Pixar's own 3D rendering software, RenderMan, was constantly refined to handle the elaborate scenes required for the film. Scenes also had animators manually adjust characters' mouths to be in sync with the actors' voices, taking a week for 8 seconds of animation at times. It didn't help that they were low on time and that midway through production in November of 1993, Disney execs were unimpressed with an early screening, criticizing the characters for being unlikable, which led to some major revisions. Despite these hurdles and intense deadlines, Toy Story emerged as a monumental success, both critically and commercially. It transformed the animation landscape, earning 3 Oscar nominations, and John Lasseter received a Special Achievement Oscar for his innovative work. This film didn't just succeed, it set a new standard, proving that computer animation was the future of storytelling in cinema, something that could coexist with 2D animation. When it comes to CGI and live-action films, the stakes are high and the challenge is unique. Animation is just one part of what falls under the visual effects umbrella in film. Since the early days of films like Tron, CGI has evolved to become a cornerstone of modern cinema, essentially for creating scenes that would be impossible to achieve otherwise. Take the 2013 film Gravity, where a staggering 80% of the film is visual effects, making the visuals a central reason to watch the movie. The Transformers series is another example of a franchise that simply couldn't exist without advanced CGI. Similarly, Inception relied heavily on CGI to bring its iconic mind-bending scenes to life, while the Lord of the Rings trilogy pushed the envelope with Gollum's motion capture performance, setting a new benchmark for CGI integration. And it was after seeing how much this tech advanced in this trilogy that James Cameron decided that CGI was good enough to make the next film on our list, Avatar. Initially shelved because the technology in 1999 couldn't meet his vision without ballooning the budget to $400 million, Cameron waited nearly a decade to start production. Production began in 2006, and before starting, they spent 14 months perfecting motion capture technology to ensure the actors' performances could be fully realized within the CGI world of Pandora. This world was so richly detailed that it required a ton of computational resources, filling a petabyte of storage and needing hours to render a single frame using Pixar's RenderMan, which is the industry standard. To complete the visual effects, 900 people from Weta Digital worked on the film, with Industrial Light and Magic joining to help with the special effects. To combine the 40% live-action footage with 60% CGI seamlessly, Cameron and his team developed a virtual camera system. This system, along with the biggest motion capture stage ever, allowed him to render CGI in real time, giving him the ability to direct within a digital environment as if he were inside what he called a game engine itself, allowing him to fly around and pick whichever angle he wants. After 4 years of production and $237 million spent, Avatar not only became the highest grossing film of its time, but also a milestone in filmmaking for its use of CGI and 3D technology. With Avatar: The Way of Water and the upcoming Avatar: Fire and Ash, Cameron continues to innovate, recently focusing on technology for underwater motion capture and realistic water rendering. Each film in the franchise is a testament to how far CGI can push the boundaries of cinematic storytelling. So it'll be interesting to see what new improvements we see next, maybe some crazy fire and smoke CGI. And now let's delve into the mesmerizing world of stop motion animation. Stop motion might seem straightforward. Snap a photo, move the object, snap another photo. But when you consider that a single second of film requires usually 12 to 24 of these movements, the complexity becomes clear. A great way to grasp the effort involved is through a scene from Parks and Recreation, where 3 weeks of work culminates in just a few seconds of screen time.
Oh my god.
Due to how difficult and time-consuming it is, stop motion isn't as commonly used as other forms of animation. Take 2009's Coraline for example. The film required 18 months of filming, 450 staff members, and 2 years of pre-production. The team constructed over 130 sets and utilized 52 different stages. Each week, around 28 animators produced between 90 to 100 seconds of footage with the help of 3D printing and creating detailed models and puppets, which was a huge invention for stop motion. Despite its moderate box office success, Coraline stands as a testament to the dedication required in stop motion animation. In 2016, Kubo and the Two Strings raised the bar even higher. The film featured characters with thousands of facial expressions. Kubo alone had over 48 million possible expressions, requiring 23,187 prototype faces. It also featured the largest stop-motion puppet ever created, a 16-foot tall, 400-pound skeleton. More recently, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio in 2022 took the craft to new heights, incorporating stunning set pieces and complex animation sequences, and was the longest stop-motion film ever made. And you can't forget about Wes Anderson's beloved films like Fantastic Mr. Fox and The Isle of Dogs, both just as difficult as the others. However, the film we really want to highlight for its extraordinary stop-motion efforts is 1993's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Predating the widespread use of 3D printing in the industry, every element in this film was handcrafted. The unique and complex characters, the elaborate gothic sets, every detail was well designed. This wasn't anything new for the medium, it was just much more complicated than anything done before, but with better lighting and camera movements to really put it above the rest. The film needed over 120 people, 20 sound stages, and 227 puppets to create the 109,440 frames. Jack Skellington alone had over 400 heads created to capture a wide range of emotions, while Sally used different masks for her expressions, preserving her delicate hair details. Directed by Henry Selick and often mistakenly credited solely to Tim Burton, who developed the story, this film was a labor of love that ultimately triumphed at the box office and won critical acclaim for its animation, design, and music. The Nightmare Before Christmas not only showcased the potential of stop motion, but also set a high standard for what can be achieved with passion, creativity, and an unwavering commitment to the art of animation. And the final hardest film to animate we wanted to highlight was 2006's Blood, Tea, and Red String, a stop-motion film created almost entirely by one incredibly talented individual, Christian Sagafsky. From writing and directing to animating and editing, Sagafsky did it all herself. Considering the complexity and team effort typically involved in stop-motion projects we've discussed, the idea of accomplishing all this by yourself is just hard to wrap your head around. Blood, Tea, and Red String took over 13 years to make, culminating in a 71-minute film that captivated audiences with its eerie charm and gothic aesthetic, presenting a dark, adult fairy tale that stands apart in the genre. Sagafsky is currently working on another solo stop-motion project, Seed in the Sand. While we don't yet know how long this new film will take, the anticipation is certainly high. And for those eager for its release, Sagafsky has a YouTube channel and other socials with videos of behind-the-scenes clips and teasers for this next project, so make sure to check them out. So there you have it, 10 of the films we believe to be the hardest to animate, with a bunch thrown in between. Are there any we missed that were even more difficult? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and check out our Patreon for some cool perks. But until next time, have a good one.